you to the series of Sustainable Heritage Management. And my name is Punto Wijayanto, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's discussions. First of all, thank you to all participants to joining us this afternoon. And we are especially grateful to our guest speaker, Professor Ana Pereira Roders, for
Thank you.
accepting our invitation and sharing her insights with us. So today's topic is heritage, climate, and the future of adaptive reuse. But we don't know what Anna will share about, so we'll see.
I'm always a surprise.
And topic is becoming increasingly important as we face two major challenges simultaneously: cultural heritage and also maintain how we deal with climate change issue.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
Professor Anna is a professor of heritage and values at TU Delft, Netherlands, and she is internationally recognized, I believe, for her work on cultural heritage, sustainability, urban development, historic urban landscape, heritage value, heritage impact assessment, you name it all. And many of us working in architecture, urban planning, and heritage studies are familiar with books, articles, and we refer to her works ya in our activity research and etc. And also today discussion is also inspired by ongoing debate in Netherlands surrounding the SoZa building in the Hague. So one of the participants, Mbak Maya, is already know about the issue ya, Mbak Maya ya.
Yes. Hi. Nice to meet you, Professor Anna. Yeah, I found it on my way to the NWO office in Den Haag, right? It is right next to the SoZa. So, yeah, I figured it out. It's very interesting. And then when I was in the NWO buildings, and then the first question they asked, "What do you think about that building?" And I said, it's very interesting. I mean, yeah, I felt something going on, even though at that time I didn't know but very interesting, very different.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Mbak Maya.
go ahead.
So although the case comes from the Netherlands, I believe the question it raises are highly relevant to Indonesia. Yeah.
Yeah,
So without taking more of your time, Professor Anna, the screen is yours.
thank you. Thank you. So it is really a pleasure to be here today, and in the next years I will be working very closely with Professor Punto in his PhD.
Recording in progress.
So, so it will be a pleasure to get a closer connection and a closer cooperation with Indonesia and with all of you. I have organized my presentation in three parts. Let me see if I can go next. But first, I wanted to show you the city where I was born in Lisbon, and that was actually the main reason and my main motivation to try to understand more about heritage, about urban development, and how could we do it on a sustainable way. And you see that Lisbon is quite old, even with an origin before Christ, and a capital since the 14th century. So it is very normal to see a fabric with different styles, different functions and then that over time they get transformed, some get demolished, some get changed, and that was what I got used to it. But sometimes I could not really understand why exactly was it that one building was considered valuable enough to be conserved, while the next building next door was not. And if I would look at both of them, as still a student, I could not understand the difference. And that's what it got me into studying more about values and about the heritage listings and the power it has for the development of cities. And of course, you can see here by this example the challenges of what you do to a city, and at the same time, if it is suitable or not, if it's sustainable or not. It's not an old problem. Actually, this is, if you don't know yourself, this is a quote from, I cannot click on the, here, it is a quote from Alberti from the 15th century in Rome, where already back then, more than 500 years ago, he was complaining about all the demolitions that were taking place in Rome without respecting the urban fabric. And in that time already, actually, there was a lot of circular economy going on with the use of the stones, of the wood, of the steel. And so you could see that it's coming now with the green economy and the circular economy. But back then was also already a practice, and they put a stop on it with a papal bull back then from the Vatican, exactly to forbid these practices, because it could not be just random. You could not just keep decomposing buildings as if they were just materials. They meant more, and they could still, many of them could still be reused. So then they created this, which is to my knowledge, the first urban heritage, urban conservation policy I could find related to the city and to the urban scale. So what got me more or less, and my understanding of what exactly happens is that the city in itself and the buildings and the resources we have is not particularly a waste or heritage by birth. It is us. It is the values we attach to it, if we appreciate it, if we don't appreciate it. And there is a whole lot of a difference, but also we are interested to understand who is behind them, what are we appreciating, what do we do about it, how do we conserve it, and then of course on the questions on who is involved, is it the mainstream, the minorities, are the heritage of minorities being neglected and such. And of course all these perspectives change over time and place. So we are very interested to study this dynamics, and that's what we have been doing for many years in my team, first in Eindhoven and now at TU Delft. But indeed, immediately, if you see this social construction, what do we find significant? There's always a difference between me, what do I value, and what is common, what is our identity. So there is this, what do I want? What do I need? So there is always this dichotomy, which is very interesting to understand, that sometimes colleagues and even owners of properties forget to understand the balance between them. And of course, I don't need to explain you with much detail, but we all know that the climate is changing. And I have here some numbers, and for sure they have changed by now. But the reality is that the construction industry, which we are responsible for, it is one of the main contributors to climate change and to the degradation of nature. And despite many of the changes and programs and policies which have been implemented, the reality is not much improved. On the contrary, in some contexts, it's even getting worse. And resources are getting depleted and depleted. So even sand for concrete is getting more and more scarce. So I really would pledge for rethinking of our discipline and our construction sector. And of course, some colleagues have been telling this for decades, but it has never been mainstream. So I think that through education and through the new generations that maybe we can find a solution to move forward. So as I said, I would divide the lecture presentation in 3 parts, and this is my first statement, which is actually the base of the work we have been developing over the years, trying to understand the different values that influence what we discuss and decide that should be heritage, and at the same time, then as designers and developers, what do we do to them? Do we conserve them? Do we redevelop them? Do we let it neglect until it ruins? So that's what we have been doing, and because I knew it was going to be a group more focused with students, I brought an example from a graduation studio we had here in Delft. So basically, those who know me, they also know that I have developed this values framework in my PhD more than 20 years ago, exactly to try to bring together, and someone is already being creative and active about it, with the risks. And these were values which I deduced from international policies and recommendations on what exactly are the reasons for why we should protect heritage and conserve it for future generations. And all these values were brought up in policy documents as a motivation. So there we developed a theoretical framework, and we have been applying it ever since in many projects in research and in education. And I saw that there was some lines on historic and age, because there is in fact a difference if the building is only old or if it is made a part of the narrative, official narrative, national narrative, educational programs. And we wanted to make this distinction, and sometimes those two values are very much intertwined. But anyhow, this is the values framework. It doesn't mean that every time we do interviews, we do workshops, that people will value all of them or will value them equally. But the framework behind is always the same, so that it allows us for comparison and for a better understanding. And these 8 values, in a way, they bring together the traditional heritage values with the sustainability, the sustainable development values. Then over the years, we discovered that it was not enough to just identify why it was valuable, so the different values, the different disciplines, but actually to understand what exactly is valuable. And then another student of ours, a PhD, developed a framework, which we also have been using and further developing, on the attributes, if they are tangible, if they are intangible. And this is just an example for the city of Yazd, of the different elements and different typologies you could identify, justifying why a city or a conservation area is listed as significant. And every time is different. Every time the description on the conservation area is different, and it's important to understand exactly on that city what is important or not to better be able to conserve it. So I'm showing you a little bit the approach over the years with the PhD students, but also with the master students, depending on their interests, depending on their capacities, and even on their discipline. We collect and you identify these attributes and values on different ways, on different methods, because every context is different. And then I also give freedom to the students to decide what they think is the best. And you see here different sources from documents, from society, from the building itself, or even from simulations. And then we do the post-coding of those attributes and values. And that is exactly what these students did a few years ago in Faro, which is the case I'm showing to you. The students went there for a few weeks. They worked with the local government and with some local stakeholders. And then because the students were very interested on how to engage with communities without the expertise to understand what values and attributes are, then they developed different methods. So they did Minecraft games with a survey answering questions on why would they do certain things in Minecraft. Then a card game with in primary schools. They also went to commerce and they did several exercises of cultural mapping. This student decided to apply a method of walking with a lot of tours and let people talk and share their interests about the city. And in the end, this student that also did a card game for the primary school adapted slightly the method into an interview with all the elderly, and because they didn't want to play, of course, they were older, they had not enough time for it or patience, so they adapted the game so that they could also have the same understanding of the students. And when you have all these different methods and topics, then they would bring it together to the understanding of what exactly have they done to collect information and which age were they addressing, which age did they cover. And then as well, what were exactly, if those methods were very useful for attributes or if they were better useful for values. So, and this is what the students did. And after those exercises, they also identify, and you see here that they are so creative that they put in icons and different colors to show exactly the different values that the different generations and what did they give priority to, depending on their understanding of the city and the exercise they have done. So, and they did this for the values, they did this for the attributes, and based on all this information, then they know what the communities want or need, and they also know which are the locations that they would like to see changed and further developed. And that was then the step forward of the design proposal of the students to further work with these values and these attributes which were considered important for that community, and to adjust a vacant building that had been there for many years, and to propose that such a building would become the hub for all those functions that the communities were missing, and to engage and to respect their values. But of course, while you do these projects, it can be that sometimes, and you can see here below that also you see the age difference and exactly how would they overlap on the values they were attaching and not. And as you can see as well, not all 8 values were identified with priorities that the student took forward. So as long as it is transparent, then we can have a discussion about it. And then in the end, as Punta already told you, we also invite the students to reflect on their own design solutions, and understand if indeed what he planned to do was bringing a positive or a negative impact to everything that the communities have considered to be of major importance. And this has been, and then in particular, he did a special impact assessment for these 3 values, and much of it had been respected and not. So then he considered that all the changes were all minor, just like the heritage impact assessment of ICOMOS, and only for phase 3, the connecting passage, then it would be really a major impact, but that he considered worthwhile. And this is a reality of a process that I'm curious if you would follow it as well in your university. But in our studio, still is very rare that a student as a designer identifies the values, design with the values, and then goes and discusses the impact of his project without trying to be defensive, without hiding it from the professor, the negative aspects of its project. So it requires a lot of maturity. And that's what we have been training the students to do, to be aware and accountable for the designs they are undertaking for the future of the development of the city. So then it takes me to the second statement, which was in fact the reality and the frustration I have in a way for working so many years with the values and attributes and showing that actually in reality there is no city without values, there is no building without values, but actually we decide as heritage experts which values matter. And if those values are enough, good enough to support a listing as heritage. While the assumption, if it is valuable, you conserve, like it has been the underpinning of heritage processes, in reality, my research from the last 2 decades would prove that we should protect everything because everything is valuable to someone. So then I started looking at still that even though there is this awareness, still there is a lot of demolition and there is a lot of destruction, which I will show you further away with the example of SoZa. And I decided to, even being a professor, to do a second PhD because I really wanted to understand what exactly can we improve within the law so that we prevent all this to happen. So therefore, my second statement, which I'm still exploring as a new PhD student, at the same time I'm also a professor, which is to dig deeper in the issue of rights. And this is all very new, and if you're interested, I welcome you to join me in this new adventure. But what I wanted to show you is that in reality, we are very used to human values. And that's what I have been working from the last 20 years. We look at from an anthropocentric perspective that buildings are a product of humans, are the home of humans, are a human right even with housing and with heritage. But to really try to understand these dynamics between nature, humans, and buildings, I created this framework to really try to understand, because sometimes if a human has a right, then someone else would have a duty. And if nature has a right or a building has a right, like when it's listed as heritage, then humans have a duty. So I would really like to further study more and analyze and classify international policy to grow into this understanding on how far have we equality in some international policies or national policies, and further understand the relationship between them. And this is when you flip the wheel, then if you would shift and then nature would start having rights in its own, and that's okay, it's already in some countries, then what would be the roles of humans and buildings so that maybe buildings don't destroy nature, just like we are doing with the depletion of resources, the pollution, with the degradation of the environment. But at the same time, buildings need nature as construction materials. So this is very much the shifting of the wheel. And last, if we take buildings as a central, and that will be my final part of my thesis, then you could understand exactly if we would imagine that buildings would start having rights, how would that actually work? Because it's not that crazy. Companies have rights, states have rights. So it's not that only humans have rights. It is already in the legal system that non-human have rights, including nature. So this is all a further development because I still think it's important that we understand the values, but I don't think anymore that they are enough to save the built environment and to really help us address the climate change and give our contribution and improve the impact or reverse the impact of the construction sector. So this is a more theoretical framework, which I will not get too much in detail, but just for you to show that will bring into different philosophical streams of either we are more anthropocentric, where humans are central, ecocentric, where nature is central, and then post-human, where you try to ensure that everyone has rights and try to understand the dynamics between them. So this is very much ongoing. And then I end up with a one sentence that it was also in our poster, which is the fact that if you would entitle a building to have rights, then just as a human, you no longer would be allowed to blindly demolish, just like you're not allowed to just kill a person. And that is actually the reality of nowadays. So I'm not surprised that the colleague Maya Rosa told us that immediately they ask about, oh, what do you think about this building? Is it ugly? Is it beautiful? Because many people still think that ugly buildings should be demolished. But we also don't kill ugly people, right? We also don't kill people because they are short, because they are unemployed, because they are sick. And this is a mentality we still have very much. We're dealing with the built environment that I think that we should change. So this sentence is very much on the baseline of understanding the building as an entity, and that us working with the built environment, we deal with them as if we were doctors. And then we try to understand and extend their life as much as possible. But of course, there's also people that die. There's also people that have accidents. So it is normal that not all buildings would last forever. But if we can, and if we have that knowledge from the heritage field, why are we just keeping that knowledge only for heritage, which is actually a minority? So for this statement, I'm showing the specific example of the Netherlands and SoZa as it was in the poster, and you can still see that despite all the policies, the climate law, the Paris Agreement, the Green Deal, the renovation wave, still in Europe, every minute a building is demolished. Still, because in reality, it's possible. It is the property right. You are a human, you have your property, and you decide whatever you want with your property. But even if the building is in good condition, it doesn't matter, at least in the context of the Netherlands. I would be very curious to learn more about Indonesia. So in reality, the only way in the law of the Netherlands to actually stop a demolition is by listing a property as heritage, which is crazy if you think that it's the only way, and that there is no control whatsoever unless the property is heritage. There's no demolition permit needed. So there you can see also here the number of buildings still in the Netherlands that are on average being demolished without any understanding on how old they are and if they are listed, because those numbers are not provided by the municipalities. So this is the case that I have been promoting, and that I decided to help the NGOs and the Europa Nostra to promote internationally, to get a greater awareness and also a critical understanding of where we are today and what we know, and if this is still acceptable. And what you see here is a building block from designed by Erzberger of 56 square meters. There are 16 towers. It was finished in the 90s, so I have here more details in the next slide. It was sold, it was public property, and it was sold with a condition in the contract and in the competition to be renovated. Over the years, even still by the architect and by other colleagues, there has been a lot of contest to the demolition. There has been architectural offices making renovation projects as alternatives, but they have all been neglected or put aside by the developer because it was not feasible compared to the profit he would like to have. And currently we have an international petition to get a bigger voice, not just in the Netherlands, but abroad. And also, this property has been shortlisted as the 14 Europa Nostra 7 most endangered sites. And back then they told us that the reason why they did not put it back to the 7 most endangered and not the 14 was because they had trust that the Dutch government would not do such a thing. But they are doing it. So it is actually quite frustrating. And it has all the reasons why you should not be doing it. So the SoZa has been hosting refugees, students, companies. It's not that it's vacant, it is being rented. But in principle, because it is on the property owner, the decision to demolish it, and he can, then this 56 square meters in a city can just be demolished without needing an approval, without needing an environmental impact assessment, because that is only needed if listed as heritage. And you can see here the reality in the Netherlands, actually, where only 0.67% of the buildings in the whole the Netherlands are listed as national heritage. Of course, the percentage might increase to 2 or 3% if you also consider the conservation areas and the municipal buildings, but those are not listed statistically by the Dutch government. But already you can see, what does this really mean? It means that we have knowledge to conserve and let buildings last longer, but we are choosing purposely to only apply it to less than 1%. And in reality, in the Netherlands, within 4 weeks, if the whole population would decide, they could simply destroy the whole built environment if they wanted, because they just need to notice, and that's enough. And that's what happened to SoZa, because on the 19th of May, the developer issued a notice to the municipality, and that means that from 16th of June, they will start demolishing. It is not a total demolition because they still want to keep using it for refugees, but because it's not heritage, we cannot control the changes as we could control if it was a listed building. So that's why I decided to help and support these NGOs. And I hope that you can also support us and all sign the petition later on. But just for you to see that actually there is almost no reason than fast profit for this developer to demolish that building, because for all other reasons, social, environmental, and cultural, such building could be perfectly renovated, and the same promises that he's doing could be done by renovation, but the law allows, so he does it, and the local municipality allows it. Another problem is that in reality, at this moment, the local government, the national government has a new program, which is very important for the more recent heritage, post 65 it is called, but they already decided that they will only list maximum 150 properties, which is not the law. In the heritage law, it does not mean that there's nowhere written that you have a number, that you have a numerus fixus, just like with the entries of students sometimes to universities. And in reality, this period of time from 65 to 90, you have 1/3 of the building stock of the Netherlands. And even you have more than 300 municipalities. So what does this number actually says? That in reality, very little of this period can be listed as heritage, not because it's not significant for the community or for national significance, but because we have a limit number at the moment, which is not even completed because they go very slowly, and so far they are just starting filling in and listing a few properties within this 150. So we risk that over the years, over the next 5-10 years, many of those potential properties will end up being demolished. And when they did this 150 properties, they also made a bigger pool of requests to municipalities, and they had 1,500 proposals. So it's not that no one wants their heritage to be recognized as national or give an argument and with sustaining. It is a limitation put top down. And you can see that in reality, our petition in Change, and there are many more petition platforms, that is not the only one. Actually, if you just type demolition, you find more than 1,700 results. So I think it's really something we should be starting to talk more in architecture faculties, because there is this lack of ethical discussion if we should just keep accepting that buildings which are healthy and in good condition are just with tabula rasa demolished for new development when it's not needed. And so far, this discussion is very limited. And then I wanted to show you other numbers, which are really, in reality, court cases of the European Court of Human Rights, so connecting again buildings to human rights. And there has been more than 1,000 cases. And in this case is the case of a private person putting the country or the municipality in court because they consider that they are disrespecting their human rights with those cases of related to demolition. So there is still much to talk about. Often we don't discuss demolition enough in our disciplines. So I would stop, and I would hope that you have many questions and that we can have a fruitful discussion or even examples in Indonesia. And also I would end up with a quest that if you also think that we should discuss more about this and that SoZa should be given the opportunity to be renovated, that you help us and sign the petition together with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. So you offer new perspective to see beyond building as just an asset, right? So
Yes.
understand them as part of culture, heritage, yeah.
Yeah, even nature, because you also have animals and greenery that cohabit with us in the city. So, and also in a way, buildings used to be nature themselves before they become resources for construction. And so far, the nature studies have been very much taking us as the enemies that we destroy nature when we build, right? So, and I think that there is a much stronger relation to be discussed, and also especially with this climate change being the construction sector, one of the main contributors to the destruction of nature, then we should really start thinking, what are we doing?
Yes, thank you. Now I want to invite Pak Suhardi. Pak Suhardi, what do you think? Can you give the comments about this discussion? Pak Suhardi from ICOMOS Indonesia. Yes.
Hello, Mas Punto. Thank you for the opportunity. Hello, Anna. Professor Anna. It was a very intriguing, very provocative, and very inspiring presentation on how to save such a wonderful building and how you put it in the context of the global fight for saving the environment and how heritage is very much, conservation of heritage is very much related to our attempt to fight the climate change as well. And I happen to be an alumni of TU Delft as well. I completed my master back 25 years ago in urban design. So hopefully I would have a chance to see you directly in person one day in near future. And I really like your research, your study, and your approach, especially of taking values further into a more orchestrated and efforts in arguing that values have such a tremendous role in protecting our heritage, and how values should be interpreted in such a way that it should be comprehensive, and saving or protecting cultural heritage is not merely for the aspects of historic reasons or nostalgic reasons or scientific reasons, but very much to do with our common goals of fighting the climate change. And you presented to us your incredible fight for saving this SoZa, which I believe it would not be possible without putting forward the arguments of climate change. And once again, thank you. And we at ICOMOS Indonesia, we look forward to be in touch with you, and we wish you all the best in your attempt to save SoZa and on your further works on how to relate climate change and conservation. Thank you. Thank you, Pak Punto.
Yeah, so Pak Suhardi, what do you think? So, what is the positions of this, let's say, passive in the ICOMOS movement, yeah, in heritage conservation? So let's say that we will have in October GA 2026, and the topic is living heritage. So how relevant is this discussion in that big event? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting question, Pak Punto. Yeah, I think it's time that all of us, both in the academic communities and also practitioners, that we should promote that the conservation of heritage also very much to do with the aspects of the living heritage. And as we all know, as part of the triennial scientific plan, ICOMOS has been promoting this issue of heritage alert, the disaster risk management, and how the living heritage, which is this year's theme for the GA in Kuching in Sarawak, that living heritage is of course also threatened by the disaster, and part of the disasters that we as human beings on Earth not only affecting our lives but also our cultural heritage. And talking about cultural heritage, beside those built heritage, the physical past that we have, we also inherit from our past the intangible heritage, which make our historic urban centers or historic neighborhoods to a certain extent still preserve, and we wish it will continue to preserve the intangible aspects that will make it a living heritage of the old city, of the old neighborhood. And the current GA will address this challenge of preserving the legacies from the living heritage amidst the threats of the climate change, and how disaster, how we should all be prepared to address this emergency situation and under this climate change. Thank you, Pak Punto.
I think it's very important, and we have some master students looking at, well, in general, as you have seen, we always use the framework of the attributes where the tangible and intangible are together. So we always worked with the historic center or urban areas with this in mind. So we evidence that even within built heritage, you always have the intangible dimension as well, and the voices, depending on who you give voice, then you discover the significance they convey to the cities and where they live. But also what that could be also a discussion for you in the GA is that we notice that even in the UK, for example, where one student is studying the case study of Bristol, the traditional listing of heritage with the historic values as baseline is very solid and ephemeral. So you get into the list and you are hardly ever delisted. But for the ones which are led by social values, they have to apply every 3 to 4 years. And if the property is not from that community, but by the government or by another developer and owner, then they are entitled to just demolish it anyway, because then they play this game of, as it is intangible, it can go everywhere. And that's not true, because the people want to use those spaces they have been using for decades and for centuries. So I would plead in the GA, if you can, to have a discussion on not letting this intangible and tangible separate, because that can be even more dangerous for the intangible and for the tangible at the same time. And then the second is the difference in the legal, like we see with the Netherlands, with the post-65, is a totally different procedure from the older buildings. With the Bristol case, is totally different if it's historic values or social values. So in the end, we are creating first class and second class on heritage, just like in the airplane, right? And it's not really fair in a way. It's not respectful to those communities. So maybe this is something you could also discuss there if you have the opportunity.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Professor Anna.
Certainly, Pak Suhardi will be in GA 2026.
Yeah, look forward to meeting you there all.
I wish to join. If Anna allow me to join. Okay. And I would like also to invite Mbak Vera. Would you also share some thought?
Yeah, thank you, Pak Punto, for the opportunity, and thank you, Anna, for your insightful presentation, about the heritage and climate and the future of adaptive reuse. Well, actually, my background is landscape architect. And when I follow your research that you just presented, well, it's more about building, but as far as I understood, it also related to the landscape, because building is part of the elements in the landscape, especially if we talk about historic urban landscape. So building become one of the most urban fabric that exists in the landscape. So maybe I would like to relate this your topics with one of our I would say project, which is involve RCE from the Netherlands, where Pak Punto also involved in this project, where in 2021 we propose the historic urban landscape quick scan as one of methods to safeguard the historic urban landscape, particularly in Indonesia. And in this, within the method of HUL quick scan, we, in one of the step, we did the analysis on historical and environment. So I think your topics, your new perspective, I would say your new perspective should be can be integrated in the method, that in order to direct our future design in the adaptive reuse. But well, what I learned from your presentation is how we relate the issue of climate change with you. In one of your slides, you put about that construction is one of the most contributor in the climate change. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I just knew it.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, I just knew it. Then that becomes can become one of consideration that in the future we should put adaptive reuse as one of approach, yeah, in developing or safeguarding the historic urban landscape.
Yeah.
I think, I think that's one of new knowledge that I learned among others from your presentation today. And
Thank-
maybe Pak Punto, we can involve Anna in our next workshop, yeah, Pak Punto, with RCA.
Yeah, it'll be a pleasure. It'll be a pleasure. But actually, the whole approach of the attributes and values was something we were developing while we were also supporting the drafting of the HUL. So it's very much intertwined. And of course, when we do those, as you do the quick scan, when we do those bigger analysis of the urban area, of course, buildings as trees, air canals, they are all part of the urban environment. So they are just as important. And sometimes nature is even more important for the ecosystem and for the heat islands or for the shadowing, for the so I think that there is more connection to nature and built than we at first foreseen. But this specific second part of the research that I was showing about on rights also come very much in line with the rights of nature. And then also what we are doing to nature as a consequence. So I think, and there are many colleagues which have been working on eco designs, and even with landscape architecture, how to build and design cities that are as an ecosystem, right? So those are not new concepts, but the problem is that they are not implemented
Yes,
in policy and in decision making at the moment. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, like Mbak Vera, so like, let's say these 5 years, we tried, for us, HUL is already quite progressive. Yeah, I mean, like, but we still try to operate, yeah, from a conceptual framework to how to implement it. That's why then, like Mbak Vera mentioned, we introduced historic urban landscape quick scan as one of the tools to operate it. Yeah, so, and like, yeah, from your discussion now, Mbak Vera, so while we try to introduce historic urban landscape, there is already another new movement, yeah, in heritage conservation. So not only to relate heritage or buildings with the nature, intangible and not intangible and tangible, but also to see beyond the buildings itself, Mbak Vera. So we
Yeah.
have, yeah,
Yeah, that's what I mean. See the building not only as a physical entity or maybe with the meaning, but also how they can contribute to in facing the climate change.
Yeah.
That's what we missed, I think.
Yeah, but also at the same time, I think that, and that's why I decided now on the last years to try to, while the other PhD students are all working on HUL based, we would discover over and over again how weak actually law and policy is, and how if people want to do it with bad intentions, actually a lot is possible. And that's what I try to show with the Netherlands, that you would not expect that it would be so much damaging, and that is because the policies allow. And that is the danger I feel with this HUL, that everything is broad and everything is possible, that then in the end we might end up doing more damage um, for being too generalistic. And then specific trees, specific buildings don't have the legal protection to help them be conserved. So that's why myself, on my own free time, I'm doing this special analysis on the laws and the rights and the duties related to buildings to try to see on that level how it can be helped. But for example, I have another colleague, a postdoc, that will join us in October, and he's going to do that for nature, in particular in cities. So when the nature is within the city, how is it valued, how is it protected, and how can it be better used and developed to help climate change. So we cannot do everything, everyone, everything. So we divide to conquer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Vera. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. And I think
I'm sorry, I have to leave.
we have to stop now. Thank you.
Yes.
But really
It was
inspiring discussions. Yeah. We
your
will have
pleasure.
another opportunity to discuss in July. Thank you.
Of course.
And
And you can find me in
all
LinkedIn if
participants,
you like.
yeah. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Oke, saya N ya. Terima kasih semua partisipasinya. Terima kasih Pak Suhardi, Mbak Widi, Mas Yanto.